Hey guys, welcome to another huge episode of Triggered. I hope everyone is doing well this Thursday. I had an absolutely awesome day yesterday at the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida. So we'll show you some of that later on in the show. Got to bring my kids, got to watch and be a part of American history and American exceptionalism. So always awesome to be a fly on the wall. Look forward to showing you guys some of that. Also, some big news out of the DOJ. Todd Blanche is named acting attorney general, so we'll stay tuned for the latest there. And, by the way, the New York Times just dropped a bombshell on Act Blue, you know, the big Democrat fundraising apparatus. Their own lawyers warned them that they could face criminal charges for taking foreign money. And if the Times is covering this, then you know this is something so big that it can't be ignored. So we'll get into all of that and much, much more coming up. So guys, make sure you're liking, sharing, and subscribing, okay? Hit that little like button. As soon as we're done here, share it to your friends, or if you have, you're watching on your computer and you want to share it with them on their phone right now so they can tune in live, even better. And then subscribe, okay? So you never miss one of these major episodes. Rumble will send you that, note. It's a big deal. If you do miss the show here on Rumble, go over to Apple, go over to Spotify podcasts. If your friends get their podcasts that way, again, you guys are the first line of defense getting this message out there. So send it to them so however they can catch it in any one of these spots. And for all of the top headlines that we cover on the show, go over to my news app, MXM News, like minute by minute, MXM, where you can get the mainstream news without the mainstream bias. And of course, don't forget about our brave sponsors for having the guts to support this program. And guys, we have another familiar face sponsoring the show now, Goldco. Gold just surged past $5,000 an ounce. Silver blew past 100. And the U.S. just added silver to the critical mineral list, meaning it's now considered crucial for American security and economic survival. This isn't speculation. This is real. That's why I've renewed my partnership with the #1 rated gold company, Goldco. A+ rated by the BBB, the Better Business Bureau, and they've helped Americans place over $3 billion in gold and silver. So visit donjrgold.com, DONJR gold.com, to get a free 2026 gold and silver kit. And because you're part of this audience, you get up to 10% back in bonus silver or gold just for getting started. Again, that's donjrgold.com. Do it now. Educate yourself. What do you have to lose? And guys, I want to tell you about a new way to combat censorship online with Rumble Wallet. Look, Rumble has never wavered in its support of free speech. And now they've introduced something that will give us protection from the big banks shutting us off. So that's why they launched the Rumble Wallet. A wallet that no one can cancel, and a wallet that supporters can use to instantly tip creators without any middlemen taking any cuts. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money. Not a bank, not a government, not a tech company, not even Rumble can touch it. It's yours, and it's only yours. You can even buy and save digital assets all in one place. So download the Rumble Wallet today, open an account, and step away from the big banks for good. Just go to wallet.rumble.com or search Rumble Wallet in the App Store. Again, that's rumble.wallet.com. Check it out. Guys, let's get into all the top headlines. A lot going on, so this is going to be a show focused mostly on all of that, okay? Last night, my father addressed the nation from the White House on where we stand in Iran. Operation Epic Fury. Over 12,000 targets hit. More than 155 Iranian vessels destroyed. Their missile program basically wiped off the map. Check it out.
As we speak this evening, it's been just 1 month since the United States military began Operation Epic Fury, targeting the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their air force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them, terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons factories and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. Our enemies are losing in America, as it has been for 5 years under my presidency, is winning, and now winning bigger than ever before.
Just think about the contrast. Remember when Joe Biden could barely even get through a sentence and basically apologized for America every chance he got? Remember that? Well, now we have a commander-in-chief not apologizing, not hedging, telling our enemies exactly what's coming and making it clear that we mean business. Compare that to 20 years in Afghanistan, where we spent $2 trillion and left with our tail between our legs under Biden. Obama gave them pallets of cash. Biden tried to revive the deal, and look where it got us.
It's very important that we keep this conflict in perspective. American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days. We are in this military operation, so powerful, so brilliant, against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days. And the country has been eviscerated and essentially is really no longer a threat. They were the bully of the Middle East, but they're the bully no longer. This is a true investment in your children and your grandchildren's future. The whole world is watching, and they can't leave the power, strength, and brilliance. They just can't believe what they're seeing. They leave it to your imagination, but they can't believe what they're seeing, the brilliance of the United States military. Tonight, every American can look forward to a day when we are finally free from the wickedness of Iranian aggression and the specter of nuclear blackmail. Because of the actions we have taken, we are on the cusp of ending Iran's sinister threat to America and the world. And I'll tell you, the world is watching. And when we do, when it's all over, the United States will be safer, stronger, more prosperous, and greater than it has ever been before.
You don't appease your enemies, guys. You don't give them an inch. You don't accept the status quo of China getting to use Iran for whatever they want. You don't just accept ceding power to our adversaries. You lead with a purpose and with a mission, okay? This is a real big one, okay? It's a real big one because it's also about Iran having a nuclear weapon. Well, you know that can't happen, but if they build up their conventional arsenal big enough, okay, it prevents you from ever stopping them from having a nuclear weapon. Okay, this is like what you see in North and South Korea. The reason the North Koreans were able to get a nuclear weapon is because they were able to build up their conventional weapons, artillery, etc., where they could take out Seoul, which sits like 30 miles from the DMZ. It put it in an impossible position that you let them get a nuke. By taking out a lot of the conventional weapons, you're able to prevent them from having that nuclear weapon, which is obviously a big one. Because I know this isn't that popular with a lot of people, okay? Should have been done probably every year for the last 47 years, and any other time period that you wait longer only made it that much more difficult. So hopefully we get a resolution there. Hopefully we don't go any further and we can be done with this thing in the near future. But for our future, you couldn't let them get to the capacity where they were too big to actually ever be able to stop. And speaking of strength versus weakness, guys, let's talk about NATO, because this story is incredible. So your favorite president said what every common sense American has been thinking for years. What exactly are we getting out of NATO? I mean, obviously, they get our protection. They get us spending hundreds of billions of dollars a year to defend them from, enemies like Russia, who they've been enriching by importing their oil and gas for decades. What are we getting in? What's in it for us? They want us to bail them out for anything and everything that ever happens. Article 5, Article 5, Article 5. If anything happens to us, you got to get us out of here. You got to help us, America. And then when America needs use of European military bases, they try to tell us the answer is no. When we simply want to fly through their airspace, they don't want to allow it. With friends like that, guys, who needs enemies? When they want more and more aid for Ukraine, when they want cheaper energy costs but attack fossil fuels on a daily basis, and then go all in on the Green New Scam, and then they want to lecture us about not doing our part? I mean, it's abject insanity. Where was NATO when Iran threatened to nuke the planet? Where was NATO when Iran attacked commercial shipping lanes in the Gulf? Where was NATO when American service members were killed? Having meetings, forming committees, issuing strongly worded statements. They were virtue signaling while Americans were in the fight. Check this out. This is Marco Rubio on NATO.
Then NATO is simply about us having troops in Europe to defend Europe. But when we need their help, not their help, we're not asking them to conduct airstrikes. When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years, trillions of dollars, and all these American forces stationed in the region? If we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship.
NATO right now is bloated, bureaucratically, and honestly seems completely useless when it actually matters. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer wanted to have another internal meeting before sending an aircraft carrier. That's not an ally. They want to come in there. When the war is over, we'll be there in space. When this stuff happens and you get it all taken care of, America, when your guys are at risk and your equipment's at risk and you've spent billions of dollars there, then we'll get involved then, sure. I guess, probably, maybe. That's not an ally, guys. That's a spectator. Who wants all the benefits without having to do their part? France's junior army minister actually said, and I quote, NATO is not intended to carry out an operation in the Straits of Hormuz. So NATO exists to do what exactly? Issue press releases? Host cocktail parties in Brussels? Poland's defense minister actually got it right. There is no NATO without the United States. Exactly. There is no NATO without us. We're the ones who show up. We're the only ones who fight. So we are subsidizing their defense. Why are we paying for countries that won't lift a finger when we need them? My father has always known this. He's been talking about it since he got into politics and probably before, like everything else. And now the whole world sees it. He's been talking about this stuff since the 80s, but Democrats and the media pretend like these views are actually something new. And by the way, at what point will any of these so-called experts admit they're just wrong about everything? They have been. I mean, that's pretty much 100% accurate. It's not just on NATO, guys. It's basically everything. Remember when they said we couldn't go after cartels? That drug boat strikes wouldn't work? That we could never bring Maduro to justice? That it would lead to a civil war in Venezuela? I mean, they are wrong about literally everything. Pick a place on the map. Pick a time frame. The regime, media, and their expert pundits have been wrong about all of it. For example, the authorities in Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, the now prime minister, are actually working with us while Maduro sits in prison. They seem to understand American strength. They understand the power of American dominance, the need for real investment. That's going to be best for their whole country and all of their constituents, and why this hemisphere is better off when America leads from the front. I mean, this is historic stuff. The Donroe Doctrine. is making our country safer and stronger. Democrats and the regime media, they're like Charlie Brown with the football, right? They run at it with total confidence every single time. And then, every single time, they end up flat on their backs when the football is pulled. And speaking of Democrats trying to rewrite history, the New York Times, yes, guys, we don't mention them often because, for the obvious reasons, but the New York Times just reported that Act Blue's own law firm warned them that they may have misled Congress and could face criminal investigation. Remember, Act Blue is like the Democrat fundraising apparatus. It's probably the place that got all the shady funds from USAID and everything. It's the place that has somehow magically allowed Democrats to outraise Republicans, even in really strong red states, 5-1 every time. Well, the law firm, Covington and Burling, one of the most powerful law firms in Washington, was telling Act Blue in internal memos that they have a massive problem. Here's what the memo said, and I quote, "It can be alleged that Act Blue accepted or facilitated the acceptance of foreign national contributions into American elections." Huh. You don't say. You mean to tell me that Democrats were engaged in massive fraud to use money from overseas to fill their own party's coffers? I don't believe it. We've been talking about this stuff for years, but now we actually have their own law firms warning them about it. Foreign contributions into American elections from the Democrats' most vital fundraising platform. I've said it before. How does a Democrat Senate candidate outraise their opponents 50-1 with an endless stream of donations, one after the other, often done in other people's names who don't even know it? You saw those exposés, and we discussed it on the show last year. And it gets worse. The memo says Act Blue's staff knew their system wasn't even trying to catch foreign money. Of course they weren't. They were happy to take the money, right? The ends justify the means. They'll do whatever they can. We'll just look the other way if we're raising money and feeing them to death and everyone's living well and we're able to fund our radical agenda. They were probably just fine with it. And they did nothing, which tells you everything you need to know. It also means the violations could be considered knowing and willful. That's the legal standard that opens the door for criminal prosecution by the Justice Department. Their own lawyers telling them this could be criminal, and they just kept going. But again, this is the same reason they're against the Save America Act. They do not want any of this stuff coming out. They want to make sure they can keep playing the game the way they've been playing it for decades. Fraud, corruption, graft, you name it. Take a look.
What I do believe is that there are at least tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands, by the time all the research is done, of people who have registered to vote in elections in one state or another, and regardless of how many of those have voted in the past. We have to remember that there are 30 million plus non-citizens in this country, 10 or 15 million of whom came into this country illegally between 2021 and 2024 alone. So regardless of how many may have voted in the past, what you have to look for is how many have registered and how many could register if we don't close this gap. Because, Maria, all you have to do right now, if you're a non-citizen, legal or not legal, go into a DMV in almost any state, fill out a driver's license application form, and then check a box and sign your name saying that you are certified to, you are legally allowed to vote in the United States, and all of a sudden you are a registered voter.
And remember, these are the same people who spent basically a decade screaming about fake Russia collusion. And the entire time, their own fundraising machine was taking foreign money. Their own lawyers were warning them it was illegal, and they were lying to Congress about it. The hypocrisy here is staggering, but it's not surprising, because this is what Democrats do. They accuse you of exactly what they're doing. Remember Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, Hillary Clinton's memo? Yeah, accuse them of doing what you're doing every single time. They weren't worried about foreign election interference. They were worried about getting caught. If if they're not going to get caught, if no one's going to prosecute them, if there's no accountability, they'll just keep going. That's a big win for them. That's the difference. They don't care about the crime, but they do care about the camera. Just think about how sick the modern Democrat Party has become. For example, remember the woman Irina, the Ukrainian refugee, a woman who came to America for safety, for a better life, who had her throat slashed on public transportation in Charlotte, North Carolina, murdered by a repeat offender with a bunch of prior arrests? And this murderer was still walking the streets, of course. They let him go time and time again. He's got a rap sheet the size of a phone book. Didn't matter. So a community up in Rhode Island put up a mural honoring Irina, a beautiful tribute to a woman whose life was stolen by a system that refused to keep a violent criminal behind bars. And you know what happened? A Democrat state representative, David Morales, went on camera and said the mural does not reflect our values. Really? Doesn't reflect your protecting an innocent woman from a deranged killer, a numerous time convict, a rap sheet as long as time? That doesn't reflect your values? That's interesting. But watch for yourself.
Ultimately, we want to make sure that every community member that calls Providence home feels safe. And we can both agree that this mural behind us does not reflect Providence's values, nor does it reflect the creativity that we want to see in our city.
Again, does not reflect your values. Wow. A mural honoring a murdered woman, a refugee, an immigrant, someone the left claims to care about. I mean, it seems all they care about. That one doesn't reflect their values. What values exactly? The value of letting a 14-time offender walk free to kill again? The value of pretending violent crime doesn't exist? The value of caring more about political optics than a dead woman's memory or her life? Again, fraud and protecting criminals is a foundation of the Democrat machine. We've showed you a story. We've showed you story after story. It never ends, including in California, which is basically the central command for this sort of fraud. Because according to new estimates from the Manhattan Institute, on Gavin Newsom's watch, fraudsters, scammers, and organized crime rings have stolen at least $180 billion. Okay, billion, not million. 180 million would be really insane and egregious. 180 billion, 1,000 times that, from California taxpayers. Unemployment, healthcare, welfare, every single program compromised. Billion with a B. 180 of them. Let's start with unemployment. At one point, just a few years ago, California had more people applying for unemployment than there were adults in the entire state of California. Let that sit in. Let that sink in for a little. Let it marinate for a second, okay? They had more people applying for that than there were people even in the state? $32.6 billion gone. Just gone. Fraud experts actually warned Newsom directly, repeatedly. And what did Newsom do? He suspended every fraud prevention rule, every safeguard, every tool designed to stop exactly this, and just opened the floodgates. Prisoners collected unemployment checks. Dead people collected unemployment checks. International crime rings were running automated bot farms to file thousands of claims per hour. But it gets so much worse. Multiple senior HHS officials estimate that California's Medicaid program has lost 25% of its entire budget to fraud. 25% of their entire budget lost to fraud, okay? Not a couple claims, not a couple cases. 25% of the largest state in the union's Medicaid budget lost to fraud. 1/4 of the state's Medicaid budget. Think about that. Vanishing into the pockets of criminals. That's $50 billion. $50 billion every single year. Not one time, Okay? One time would be really, really, really bad. 50 billion every single year. While actual sick people in California can't get an appointment to get treatment. And fake offices and shell companies operate scam after scam after scam after scam. So you've got 32.6 billion in unemployment fraud, 50 billion a year in Medicaid fraud, 180 billion total stolen. Roads there are crumbling, neighborhoods burned to ash. You know, you live on the Pacific Ocean, but they can't bother to tap into that water system to save the homes. You know, minor stuff like that. Basically, nothing's been rebuilt in over a year. Homelessness is everywhere. Drug addiction is out of control. And they ask, where did the money go? Well, that's easy. It went to criminals. It went to criminals because Gavin Newsom turned off every safeguard and turned on the cash machine. And this is the guy Democrats want to be the next president of the United States. They want him to run in 2028. He's one of the leading contenders. He can't even keep criminals from robbing his own state blind. This is what happens when Democrats run things. They don't just waste your money. They create the systems that let criminals steal it. Many of them foreign nationals and illegal aliens. You know, I guess as long as you kick back to the Democrat Party machine, you're probably fine. They'll make sure you can keep going. They'll turn off all the safeguards to prevent these things from happening. And if you want to understand why my father is fighting so hard on birthright citizenship, this story says it all. A Chinese video game billionaire just got exposed for fathering over 100 children through American surrogates. 100 children. So a Chinese billionaire probably doesn't need to have American surrogates, but, you know, if he fathered 100 of them, all born on U.S. soil, all automatic U.S. American citizens, think of what that can do. Check this out.
Let's start here with some examples of some of the types of individuals we could be talking about, like Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez. Now, Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez was born in Santa Ana, California in 1984. His parents were from Mexico. He happens to also be the stepson of El Mencho, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. And now he is reportedly leading that very same cartel. And here's the thing. He is a United States citizen by birth. And it doesn't stop there. Reports of foreign wealth being used to manipulate the system. One Chinese billionaire reportedly has more than 100 U.S.-born children through surrogacy. The idea, build a future family and a business succession plan. Some clients, by the way, request up to 100 babies via multiple surrogacies. It can cost as much as $200,000. And why would they do that? Because babies born here are automatically U.S. citizens. Also, surrogacy is illegal in China. Nearly 41% of international surrogate parents in the United States are Chinese. So why is this such a debate? Look around the world. Much of Europe has restricted birthright citizenship. Asia basically ended it. The United States, still one of the few countries around the world that sits as an outlier.
100 children, 100 instant American citizens, because one guy figured he could game our system on an industrial scale, and nobody stopped him. These children, probably taken care of by him through CCP, or perhaps even brought over there immediately after birth. You know, they can become essentially CCP operatives. That's where their allegiance and their loyalties go lie. But, you know, they're American citizens, and they can come back here and they can vote, and they can run for office and probably do the bidding of the Chinese Communist Party. This is exactly why birthright citizenship reform matters. The 14th Amendment was written for freed slaves after the Civil War, not for foreign billionaires running citizenship scams. And before we wrap up, so we got to end on some good news, I went up to the Kennedy Space Center yesterday for NASA's Artemis II mission, where astronauts launched on a 10-day journey around the moon. It was an awesome experience. Check this out.
10, 9, 8, 7, RS-25 engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis II now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Good roll pitch.
Roger, roll pitch.
Houston now controlling the flight of Integrity on the Artemis II mission around the moon.
Integrity, AMT high.
AMT high.
On time, passing 30 seconds into the flights. Integrity passes the alternate MECO. Target milestone. Mission Control Houston seeing good performance on the 4 main engines. Space Launch System core stage. Integrity, 3 miles in altitude. Traveling more than 1,200 miles per hour.
And one of the unsung achievements of this administration is our space policy, turbocharging more space exploration, investing in our space force to ensure American space superiority. And it also highlights a bigger point I've made before. My father is doing things to benefit generations to come, okay? This is the most powerful manned rocket ever created. This is the farthest humans, any human, will ever have been from Earth in history, okay? They're going back around the moon. Now, I gave Jared Isaacman, the head administrator at NASA, a little bit of a hard time. Be like, guys, you had to do this on April 1st. Okay, on April Fool's Day, you had to do this because, in all fairness, the conspiracy theorists are going to go wild with that one. They're going to give it a little bit of extra fodder. But, you got to make sure the weather windows are amazing, what they're doing. And I can assure you, I was right there, man. I saw it. This thing was not a video simulation. You could feel the vibrations of the power of these rockets. Again, the largest manned spacecraft ever to go into orbit from miles away. So I think it's real. I think April 1st may have been an interesting time to do it, but it's actually amazing. And speaking to some of the astronauts around there, they were just thankful that we are allowing these programs to do what we need to do. Okay, again, this is going to benefit generations to come. DC wants everything to be about the next election or the next CR, continuing resolution, but we're thinking bigger than that. We're thinking about younger generations, people who haven't even been born yet. You also see it with the Trump accounts, okay? With giving young families the ability to invest in their future now. It matters. It pays dividends in the future, okay? It's not just about instant gratification to win an election. It's about changing the way our system works permanently so it benefits American citizens in the future, not just selling them short for a quick election win and screwing them in the future. And before we go, a story just breaking today. This is going to be a big one for a lot of the people out here and certainly watching the show. The Colorado Court of Appeals has thrown out the sentence of Tina Peters, a 70-year-old woman who was literally thrown in jail for questioning voter integrity in Colorado. The appeals court rules that it reversed her sentence, quote, because it was based in part on improper consideration of her exercise of her rights of free speech. Okay, she questioned something. And I know in America under Biden, that's a crime punishable by jail. Questioning something, having conversations. Peters was sentenced to 9 years for questioning the election. The prosecutors claimed it was for using another person's security badge to access an election facility, but in reality, it was because she was speaking vocally about election fraud, something we all know was actually happening. Now, the fight isn't over, though. It could be appealed to the state Supreme Court, and Peters is also pushing for a pardon from Governor Jared Polis, Democrat, so we'll see where that goes. Again, we know how that usually works out, but it could be great because we do need to be able to question things. We need to be able to exercise our First Amendment rights. That's a fundamental tenet of American freedom and democracy. It's the fundamental tenet of our republic. It's the First Amendment. But it's certainly welcome development to see that something is finally happening, and it's a big win for free speech. So I think it's worth stepping back and looking at the big picture of all of this, looking at the difference between weakness and strength, between surrender and victory, between innovation and decline. When the president is strong, bureaucrats can't hide behind process forever. They can't do it. The scams start getting exposed. The corruption starts surfacing. And the whole rotten swamp machine starts to shake. And that's where we are right now. And that's why the left is panicking. Because they can feel it. Like I felt those rockets yesterday. They can feel that the excuses aren't working anymore. The fake moral superiority isn't working anymore. But the swamp has teeth. So we can't get complacent. And it's why we need to keep getting the message out. So guys, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribing so you never miss one of these episodes. Download the Rumble app on your smart TV so you can watch with the whole family. Check out our incredible sponsors down below and in the video description, right? They have the guts to support this kind of programming. Make sure we support those who support us, okay? Like, share, subscribe, okay? We're nearing the end of the show, so like, share, subscribe, hit the like button, make sure we get the message out there. Share it with your friends, okay? Subscribe so you don't miss it. Check us out on Apple, on Spotify podcasts. If you missed the show here or if you have friends that get their podcast that way, you guys need to be a part of saying enough is enough. So as always, stay strong, stay informed, stay engaged, and always stay a little bit triggered. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you all again very soon.